every other country. Alex, as we wrap up, we know that the president is due to speak to the American people at 12:45. Obviously, we all want to hear what he has to say, but I have to make sure that we put this in layman's terms for all of our viewers. What is it that you have to say to someone watching right now that yet again is concerned that this will affect them and hit them in their pocket?
Don't pay attention to the headlines. This is just noise. Look at the signal. Right now, President Trump is still in control, and he's going to figure out a solution to bypass this problem. Tariffs, the intention of that was to make us a lot more independent. So that's the path that we're on. We're going to celebrate our 250-year anniversary, and we're bringing back some of the old policies that made our nation work. So don't panic. Just like what happened during Liberation Day. The market dropped for a few days, and then it went back up. So all you have to do is think long term. Don't react for the short term. Obviously, pay attention and have your options available, but don't overreact.
Well said. Yet again, Alex Ebkarian, investment banking expert, joining us right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. We truly appreciate your time.
Thanks.
All right, folks, we'll take a quick break. On the flip side of that break, Marley Hornick joins us. All things politics coming up next, right here on the Live Zone. All right, folks, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. It is now 12:18, 18 minutes past the top of the hour. Of course, the big story of the day, the Supreme Court striking down President Trump's far-reaching global tariffs. That happening just about an hour or two ago. Joining us now to discuss this and so much more in studio, Marley Hornick, CEO of Real America Vote. Good to see you and happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Guy. I'm so glad to be here in studio with you today. And what a banner day for America. I mean, we have, the ships converging on Iran. We have the governors arguing at the White House.
Yep.
And now we have the Supreme Court opinion dropped on the president's lap. And it is shocking, honestly, and I'm so grateful for Justices Kavanaugh and Alito and also Thomas, of course, for pushing back.
Yeah.
And that's because in the Federalist Papers, so let's go back to the philosophy of the executive based on what the agreements were.
Sure.
Right? In Federalist 70, Alexander Hamilton clearly said that the executive has to be very energetic and that there has to be the ability in that executive to make foreign policy decisions on a unitary basis, because you don't always have time to hold a committee, right? So like, let's say you're with your family and you want to figure out where to go for dinner. It could take a while. If you just call up and you say, hey, I really feel like going to Shake Shack or whatever, then boom, everyone's like, sure, I'll eat that,
Yeah.
So this is the issue. And when the authority to delegate or to exercise this power is spread out, then how do the American people change their decision? Now it's spread out over all of these people, and it was supposed to be one person that the people elected to make those decisions.
That is correct.
And it's hard to get elected president. It is not an easy thing, right? So this is really a loss for the American people. I wouldn't call it a loss for Trump, because we know that he's going to continue with the America First policies. He's going to find a way to make sure that American economic interests are localized and that our agreements with other countries protect American taxpayers, American investments, and American business. So that's going to be his next path, is what is that solution? And I think we know he's been gaming this out for a while.
Yeah. I would assume the president is now hunkered down within the White House, the Oval Office at that, preparing to speak to the American people yet again at 12:45. What do you think he needs to say? And I posed this question to my last guest, who happens to be an economy expert. What does the president need to say to bring about calm following this decision?
I think that he needs to go back to many of the points that Secretary Rubio brought up on Saturday in Munich. What an extraordinary speech. And this, what we're looking at is not your average, economic policy discussion. We're really looking at a battle for control of the American economy. Is it going to be globalized, or is it going to go back to the American people and benefit our country long term, right? So short term, there might be some pain. Long term, we're looking at rebuilding industrialization, rebuilding manufacturing, rebuilding productivity right here at home. And I think one of the ironies that maybe he'll bring it up, it's a little bit, let's say it's sensitive. But one of the ironies of this circumstance is that when we fought the Civil War, we had problems in domestic policy. We had people who wanted to continue abusing other people's labor to produce a product more cheaply, to profit more greatly in their exports, right? So what is the circumstance we're looking at here? In 1980, Congress authorized individual owners of intellectual property that had been generated through federal grants, right? So researchers, developers of technology, they got federal grants. That means our money. We paid for them to do this research and development. And in 1980, in the Bayh-Dole Act, Congress said, it's okay for you to take that intellectual property the American people gifted you and sell it. You can take that idea that you generated and you can go overseas where you can set up shop more cheaply and you can pay, a fraction of the wages.
Sure.
How is that not a pro-slavery policy? Honestly. And I don't, I'm not trying to say that this is, we're back in Jim Crow. That's Chuck Schumer's talking points. But I do think it's shocking that people are not looking at this problem. I think it's a wonderful thing that the president wants to bring industrialization back to this country and force the international bodies to compete on a fair playing field, and including that American people need their jobs back. How are we going to have affordability without jobs?
Well, one thing's for sure, as the global economist pointed out, we import more than we export right here in this country. Obviously, we'll have to keep a close eye. And yet again, we are expecting the president. Let's go ahead and take a live look at the White House, where we are expecting the president to approach that podium in just about 20 minutes or so to address the American people after the U.S. Supreme Court ruled 6-3, centering all things on tariffs imposed under an emergency powers law that the president levied on nearly every other country. When that happens, we'll bring it to you live right here on the Live Zone. I want to revert back to something you also made mention of, and that happens to be the National Governors Association. We now know that they say they will no longer facilitate its annual meeting at the White House. This after President Trump rescinded invitations to not one, but two Democratic governors. A lot of back and forth going on. We're taking a look at Maryland Governor Wes Moore right there, and I'm curious your take on all of this.
A lot of this goes back to the same issue. What the states fundamentally are fomenting right now is, I would call it a soft secession. So at the end of the Civil War, the Supreme Court issued an opinion, Texas v. White, and they made probably one of the most inspiring and beautiful statements about our country. They said, this is an indestructible union of indestructible states. Now, what we're seeing at this time is we're seeing states delegate themselves federal authority. So we have New York and California and other states have joined the World Health Organization. That is a federal decision. That is a foreign policy federal decision that the states have appropriated for themselves. So what does that mean for the citizens living in those states who voted for this president? They have functionally lost representation, and the states are functionally seceding from the agreement to be a union. The same thing is true when you look at immigration policy, and you have states not only refusing to cooperate with federal law enforcement, but refusing to acknowledge its legitimacy. This is a betrayal of the law that we have all consented to live under. And you see the same issue, again, in my department, election integrity, where the states are refusing to share federal information with the Department of Justice with these unredacted voter lists. And they're claiming it's a privacy issue over Social Security numbers that the federal government issues. It's just a bunch of, it's just rhetoric. But it's very damaging, I think, for the country. So as far as these governors go, they're doing something very dangerous. And one thing that a lot of people don't remember is that in 1868, when several of the states still had refused to obey the laws of the Union, and that was Texas, Virginia, and Mississippi, their electoral college votes went unrecognized in the 1868 presidential election. So it's not like these kind of arguments haven't taken place before, but they are really stressful, and they really do, we're kind of in uncharted waters. So I think the president was very correct in taking a conciliatory tone and allowing all the Democratic governors to come to the meeting after telling them he wasn't even gonna talk to them, wasn't even gonna let them in, but he did. So hopefully we can find some common ground here and
I think that's the key.
And get back to following the law.
Sure. It's a valid argument, and quite honestly, one that one should look more into with regard to what you just made mention of. I'm curious, though, they're playing devil's advocate here. There are so many others that are saying, well, the president should take the high road and or lead the nation by reaching out, extending the olive branch, if you will. And so many folks stating that's not happening. And to your point, if that's actually the case, wouldn't it be better by having a conversation?
Well, he did invite a conversation. He did allow everyone to come. And you have to remember, I mean, last year when he had all the Democratic governors there, that the governor of Maine, got up in the middle of the meeting, was very disruptive and was shouting at Trump, "I'll see you in court." So that wasn't very decorous either. I think what we have to remember, though, is that the president swore an oath to uphold and preserve the United States Constitution. So he's bound. There is only so far he can be nice. He owes his allegiance to the American people, not to niceness. and not to allowing states to bully him into basically a dissolution of the union. That would be a huge betrayal of American interest and his oath of office.
Very curious as to whether or not the president plans to touch on that as well when he takes to the podium at 12:45. We're going to leave it right here, hoping you'll stick around. That way we can get your response at 1 o'clock following the president's speech, yet again addressing the Supreme Court's ruling surrounding all things tariff. Marley Hornick joining us on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Good to have you in studio. We truly appreciate it.
It's always good to be with you, Guy.
All right, folks, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the Fox 5 Live Zone. It is now 12:30, against the bottom of the hour. Just a quick reminder, we are awaiting President Trump to address the nation following the Supreme Court ruling to, well, in so many words, ending the president's tariffs levied on a plethora of countries. My next guest really needs no introduction. That's because 9 times out of 10, if you turned on the TV, guess what? Her face plastered all over it. Whether it happened to be The Wonder Years or Dear Best Friend, well, right now, you can check her out on Amazon Prime's hit series Cross, where she plays, well, let me just say, one of my favorite characters. The first of 3 episodes of season 2 dropped on February 11th. Please welcome the DMV's own Ashley Rios right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Hello, my friend. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. How are you?
I am doing just fine. You can tell I'm all smiles. That's because you actually joined us. I cannot believe it. Little old me got a chance to speak with Ashley right here on the LZ. Hey, that kind of rhymed. Ashley, you have been all over, and you hail right here from the nation's capital, or the area, I should say. And you've been living out in L.A., and so with that, I got to say, welcome home.
Thank you. It feels so good to be home. But I have to tell you, home is always with me. So it doesn't matter where I am. I am a DC girl through and through.
So, Ashley, since you've been back, let's see, have you partake in some crabs with Old Bay, or have you gotten your dish of mambo sauce?
The first thing I got was my crab boil. Absolutely. I have already had that. Okay. But I will tell you that in LA, we keep Old Bay, like the big jumbo one, in the cabinet. It's there 24/7. Yes.
I absolutely love it. You know what else I love? I love the show. It's so funny. It's season 1. I found myself, okay, don't tell anybody, but I ended up binge watching most of the episodes. And I would just sit there plastered to the TV, just loving everything I saw because it represents all things DC.
Yes, absolutely. And you're not alone, okay? Just so you know, you're not alone. Everyone binged that show, and we appreciate it so much. we're so happy that you guys loved it and felt the love that we poured into it. That's really the best part. It is such a love letter to DC. It represents our city so well, and we're able to see it in a way that it's not typically portrayed on television. We normally only get the White House and the Capitol and the Monument, but we're getting Anacostia, and we're getting the Wharf, and we're getting the culture and the community of DC.
Yeah. You know what's funny? One episode, I believe I saw the Backyard Band on there. And I'm
Yes,
just,
you absolutely did. Big B and Genghis was there as well. Yes, for sure.
it was just so cool. I'm like, wow, hey, I know those guys. I know that. Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, but although it's based in Washington, D.C., a lot of the filming or the shooting takes place in Canada, does it not?
So some of it does. So it's both. We film, absolutely, we do film in DC, and then we also film in Toronto.
Wow. All right, so what is it about this series that's so different from all the other roles that you've played?
I think that this one is honestly probably the closest to me personally. I just remember when I was reading it and I'm looking around and I'm like, I hadn't met the showrunner, Ben Watkins at the time, who's absolutely phenomenal. But as I'm reading it, I'm like, does someone know me? Like, I'm like, how is this girl so me? But I think she's so me because she is that true representation of DC. And I just think that that's wonderful. It's an absolute honor to play this character.
Yeah. You know, I was watching the Olympics last night, and I can't remember the young lady who took the gold in figure skating. And I know I'm somewhat going on a tangent here, but I remember when she was gifted or found out that she had actually won the gold medal. The first thing that I got from her was, yeah, I know I did a good job. Yeah, I know I had it right. I get that from you as well, meaning at what point did you know this show was such a hit? And I would argue a lot of it has to do because of you.
Appreciate that. I'll tell you, I think that, season one, I'd just be walking around set, like pinching myself, like, is this real? I think for me, when I was really kind of new, like, okay, this is something truly special. When they had me back for season two, I mean, to see the growth of Malika's character and, her partnership now and all of those things, it really touched my heart because I'm like, this didn't have to happen this
Mm.
way. And so, I went to them and I'm like, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And the response was no, thank you. They were like, thank you for what you brought to the project, what you brought for the role. And this absolutely made sense for us to keep her around. And I mean, it was all I could do not to just like burst into tears in front of them. Definitely cried about it. Tears of joy. But I'm like, hold it together, hold it together. But I mean, just what an honor.
Yeah. Ashley, as we wrap up, there are so many young ladies that are looking up to you. They're watching this right now and they're saying, oh my God, she's from the area, as we like to say, and she made it. What inspiring words can you share with them? Perhaps they too are facing obstacles and or roadblocks.
And there will be obstacles, there will be roadblocks, and I can't guarantee you that it's going to be easy, but I can absolutely guarantee you that it's going to be worth it. And it's like, stay true to you and who you are. Know that that thing that you feel that's like burning in your gut, this, whether you call it a dream or desire or purpose, know that that's real and know that that's true and continue to follow it and honor yourself. And I will see you at the top.
I absolutely love that. You know what I love even more? The fact that I'm now ending this interview so I can go watch the first 3 episodes of season 2.
Oh, four out now. So
Oh,
now you
4.
got
Okay.
4.
Well, even better.
Yes,
I have something to binge over the weekend.
you
Yet
do.
again.
Please enjoy.
Ashley Rios, actress extraordinaire, joining us right here on the Live Zone. I truly appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
You bet. All right, folks, we'll take a quick break. Hey, on the flip side of that break, Caesar joins us with the latest surrounding the forecast. Shall I say snow? Maybe, maybe not. That coming up next right here on the Live Zone. All right, folks, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Time now to talk a little weather, shall we? Caesar joining us from the meteorology department. Caesar, I got to tell you, it is all things snow, all things slush, all things sleet, all things freezing rain. Am I wrong?
Oh, my goodness. Guy, you couldn't have said it better yourself than me. It is going to be a mess. That is exactly what we're talking about. One thing I did want to say when you said the meteorology department reminded me of like back in school, going back over to when you'd go into the classes and be like, oh man, I got to go down to, you know, the geosciences hall to the meteorology department. I'm here feeling like Professor Caesar now. But hey, you know.
We wanted to bring you in because a lot of folks are talking about what could actually happen on Sunday. And, you know, obviously when we're talking about anything pertaining to snow around these parts, folks get concerned.
No, they definitely should be concerned because, again, this is a system that is expected to drop something wintry, whether it be sleet, a slushy mix, some cold rain, which, of course, we've seen throughout parts of just this week can cause some issues for people driving. You know, it's all anything and everything can always become an issue. And then once you add snow to the mix and colder air that allows it to accumulate, well, you know, that is never the best thing here in the DMV. People don't like to slow down, and it just becomes a traffic issue. But the reason also why we're seeing some of this issue as to what can everything, you know, why we can see almost anything and everything under the sun when it comes down to the wintry precipitation, well, it's because we have this one system that is going to draw in some cooler air, but it's going to also, as you see, right, that's the upper level low. You're going to have the low pressure system sitting right where that first arrow is, as it swings up towards the northeast. And as that continues to strengthen and bring in some of that colder air, again, we're going to see precipitation, whether it be rain, sleet, snow, wet snow, whatever it is. It's just, it needs that cold air to actually make it a frozen precipitation that ends up creating the bigger issue. Again, you know, we're not expected to see that snow lingering for us, but one thing is certain is that we end up seeing a lot of that colder air really producing at least that wintry mix, if not just downright snow at first. So that's going to be the big thing that we're looking at. And I just want to show some of the differences as well as to why we haven't been able to really call what we want out of this system just yet. There's a huge discrepancy from the two major models. The European model, which I have up right now, showing that a lot of areas have snow amounts of about maybe 2.5 inches, 3 inches, 4 really towards the max for certain spots. And it's a very thin line, right? Right there, central Maryland going to southern Maryland, it may be touching into parts of DC as well. But then take a look at this, the American model.
Oh, wow.
Look at that difference. You tell me, if you're between a light salad and a cheeseburger and you're like, I want to stay healthy, but I also want the nice, calorie-laden meal, get that dopamine going, you're kind of split in between, and that's really where we're at here, The American model, not to like disparage it or anything, it is normally a pretty good model, but it hasn't handled the winter storm systems as of late of the last few years the best. The European model has. But when you have two big differences like this, and that you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on, well, how do you discern what's good, what isn't right now? And that's the biggest question for us right now that we continue to try and parse out, especially as more model data comes out. Now we're getting into the territory of where what we call convection allowing models. So it's where you can see some of the smaller details, as well as also whether or not there's more convection. So that's like stronger precipitation rates, things of that sort. We are starting to get those models getting into the time frame of Sunday morning into Sunday evening. So as that data starts to come out as well, you have more to work with, and you can see, okay, are the other models lining up with the GFS? Are the other models lining up with parts of the Euro? So that's where you can start to see, okay, I may want to start leaning less snow because the other models don't see it. But if the other models do see more snow, that's where you're like, oh, maybe the American model, the GFS, actually has something to work with here, and we could see a significant amount of snow. So this is where we right now have, it's as much as we may not like it, because of course everyone wants to know, how much snow am I getting? We're 2 days out. Caesar, why haven't you said a snow amount that's definitive, at least to prepare for Monday? It's because there's so much space in between that it can either be an event where, hey, you know what, school is canceled maybe for Monday, maybe for Tuesday, because, a foot of snow is nothing to laugh at. And then if we get a slushy 2 inches, that's where you're like, well, Caesar, you said it was a foot. What happened?
And it's happened many a times.
It has. So that's the biggest thing that we have going on right now. It's why we're keeping an eye super close to the forecast. Each model run that comes out, we're sitting there waiting for each hour until it hits that Sunday night frame, time frame, and we're like, oh, what are we looking at? What are we looking at? That's exactly what Tucker and I have been doing this entire morning. I'm sure Caitlin, as well as Mike Thomas, have been doing this all night, last night as well. I'm surprised I haven't seen any of the tweets from Mike Thomas just yet saying, hey, these are the latest models. Look at this. What's going on? Let's talk about it. And I'm like, oh. So this is something that we're just keeping a big eye on because, again, the discrepancy between models is very big. So we want to make sure that we get you the most correct information we can. You know, predicting's a little hard.
And that's why, if you haven't already done so, you need to download the Fox Local app. That way you can take this forecast with you on the go, anywhere you go, any minute. And of course, we truly appreciate Caesar with the latest. All right, we'll take a quick break, folks. We'll be right back. All right, folks, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Just a quick heads up, we are awaiting President Trump to approach that podium to discuss all things tariffs. Earlier today, the U.S. Supreme Court ruling in so many words that the president's tariffs happen to be illegal. He now plans to address the country. When he does so, we'll bring it to you live right here on the Live Zone. So by a show of hands, and you see me raising my hand, how many of you have had the opportunity to sit with elephants? Well, I should see more hands than that. However, my next guest done it time and time again. So much so that he wrote a book entitled just that, Sitting with Elephants. It's a heartfelt memoir that follows a middle-aged American professor and his wife as they trade suburban life for a remote bush house in South Africa. I'm referring to none other than Dr. Ronald Dulick, now joining us right here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. Dr. Dulick, it is a pleasure to have you on the show, sir. Welcome.
I'm honored to be here, Guy. Thank you.
May I ask where you are zooming in from?
Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Oh, I know that city well. I actually attended the University of Alabama, so I happen to be a proud Alabamian, if you will. Roll Tide all the way. So
Roll Tide.
I'm so intrigued about the book that you wrote. I mean, obviously, for so many folks, they could only dream of sleeping and or sitting with elephants, but apparently that happens to be the norm for you. Why did you buy a home in the African bush?
You know, I'm a professor at the university, and I always talk to my students about squeeze the juice, get as much as you can out of life. And every night I was coming home and watching Fox News and reading newspapers, and I suddenly turned to my wife and said I was a hypocrite. And she and I, we had been to Africa before, and we came up with the idea of buying a bush house in Africa and I promptly went upstairs and bought it online
Wow.
on the internet.
Just like
without
that?
Just like that.
Were you ever frightened while in the bush?
Constantly. We have, there's a fence in our backyard, just a wire fence, but in the backyard are all African animals, lions, leopards can jump the fence, and then elephants come up to the fence, and they occasionally break it.
Wow. So I have to ask, what's the most scariest moment you experienced?
The most scary, well, actually, it isn't the animals. We have problems with poachers in the area. And one evening we actually saw, because we have rhinos in the area, so poachers occasionally, and you'll see them, we saw them one night with their flashlights. And I'd like to tell you that I was really brave and went out and said, get out of here. But instead, my wife and I got in the car and went to a local hotel.
As you should. Sir, I would have done the same thing. And so no shame in that game. What overall did you learn from your experience?
Most importantly, probably humility. The elephants are magnificent. And getting up it took me 5 years to get to sit with them. I continued to approach them, but I would get scared and back off or sometimes run away. And there were some safari guides who were giving me lessons on this. And they told me the most important thing is to be humble. And I think that, and when I would run away, they would laugh at me for many things, but they'd never laugh when I told them I ran away. They said, you're not humble enough. And then one day an elephant just stayed with me.
Wow.
And then from then on, I was able to do it.
I had the experience to visit Phuket in Thailand, and while there, I got a chance to, I guess, ride an elephant, walk with the elephants, feed the elephants. But I mean, that happened to be in a confined space and something that obviously they were trained to do. I'm curious, how did you bond with an elephant?
My first goal was just to stand by them, and after I did that successfully, the next day, to my surprise, the elephant returned and actually fell asleep right beside my fence. And when I went to I was afraid to go down, but I went down to when I went to the guides, and they told me she was trusting me because she wouldn't sleep there if she didn't feel safe with me. And so the next time I saw her, I then started gradually approaching until I finally was able to go down and sit with her. Eventually, she actually, it was amazing. She actually brought by her babies to show me.
Oh, wow.
She walked past me.
Gosh,
It was just absolutely astounding.
I am so intrigued and cannot wait to get my hands on the book, yet again entitled Sitting with Elephants. Not only did you sit with them, you actually fed them, you got a chance to really befriend them, unlike any other. And so do you plan on buying a home again in Africa?
I've still got it.
Really?
Yeah, I still have the home. I go every summer for 2 months. The home is right on the bush, in the bush, no electricity. It's beautiful. Yeah, I'm going back.
Hey, can I sign up to hopefully join you, maybe be in the suitcase?
Hey, visitors are always welcome, Guy. Visitors are always welcome. Lots of people visit.
Really? And so I'm just thinking about the African bush, and I guess the first thing that comes to mind happens to be perhaps the lack of health facilities and or groceries. Is that something that's of the norm?
In this area, yes. It takes about an hour to go to the grocery store. And we cook outside. But yeah, there's no, we're pretty much isolated. There's some other houses in the compound where we are, but there's no grocery stores or anything like that. It's an hour drive for that.
Wow. I am yet again so intrigued, and I cannot wait to actually read the book entitled Sitting with Elephants, Lessons in Humility from the African Bush, of course, authored by Dr. Ronald Dulick. It is such an honor to have you on the show, sir. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Guy.
Yep, and roll tide all the way.
Roll tide all the way.
Good stuff. All right, folks, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, folks, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone, we are now 2 minutes away from the top of the hour. You are taking a live look at the White House, where any minute now, President Trump is expected to approach that podium. Well, he will have reaction following the Supreme Court striking down the president's far-reaching global tariffs, handing him a significant loss on an issue crucial to his economic agenda. This was due to get underway at about 13 minutes ago or so. So we have seen a lot of activity and are expecting the president to yet again make his way to that podium. When that happens, we'll bring it to you live right here on the Live Zone. Joined yet again by Vernon Miles with all things we are covering. Speaking of the president, we know that we will get reaction also from our legal attorney, Katie Barlow.
Yeah, Katie Barlow's going to be out there covering that. That's really her forte, covering the courthouse stuff. So I'm really excited to see kind of what her reaction to that is and what she hears kind of covering this case.
Yeah, yet again, that due to happen any minute now. And it's funny, we're on pins and needles waiting for the president to approach that podium. We can tell you there has been a lot of activity. Speaking of the president, we know that tensions in essence rising with regard to all things surrounding Iran.
Yeah, we've been covering the negotiations with Iran over the last couple weeks. Those have been over like their nuclear capacities and stuff like that. That's taken a turn over the last few days. They're deploying an aircraft carrier, the Abraham Lincoln, to the Gulf. We're seeing a lot of military buildup and a lot of rhetoric around possible military strikes into Iran. Not sure if or when that's going to happen. We might, this could be anything from threatening, to try to get something more out of the negotiations to something like we saw in Venezuela earlier this year, where we saw a similar military buildup off the coast of that country. So that's something we're really watching that pretty closely. Either way, this could be a huge shift in the powers in the Middle East.
Yeah, yet again, we will continue to follow that. You heard the saying, space, the final frontier. Well, in this case, we're making mention of NASA's Artemis II project testing successfully.
I'm very excited about this. I have two friends who are working on the Artemis II project, so I've been following this very closely.
Wow.
Yeah, I was texting them as I was covering the story. I was like, got any insights into this? So they're very excited about this. The Artemis II is our first moonshot, again, in many years, and almost, I think it's half a century or half a decade, I can't remember. But it's been a long time since we've done a moonshot, and just going around the moon, doing some of the testing again. So the Artemis II project got delayed before. There were problems with the fuel lines. Now they did a successful test yesterday. It's called a wet launch. It's everything up to igniting the engines, everything from fueling, all this stuff, making sure it all works. It went well, so we could be seeing that full launch later on this year.
Yeah, I am really excited about this as well. Anything, all things space, I think is just really cool. It might be cooler that you have two friends that are actually working on it. So.
One of them works in the PR, one of them works in the rocket stuff. She actually studied whale sounds before this, so it's been a wild career shift. What a crazy...
You go from whale sounds to space, I tell you. Yeah. Cover the entire gamut around here. Hey, we're also talking about the D.C. public school system celebrating all things Black history with the Commanders.
Yeah, this is pretty great. I saw this, looking at the news feed, looking at everything we're covering today, and I was like, hey, this is great. This is the Commanders. I think World Kitchen is there as well. And they're coming together at DC public schools, at the elementary schools. They're cooking meals for these kids, these nice homemade meals, sitting them down and reading books by Black authors. That's really helping to show these kids, their sense of community, both literary, like food-wise and stuff like that. It's all fun. It's a really good experience.
Yeah. Last but not least, the National Guard back on the top of mind for so many Americans.
Yeah, they have a new Disasterville program. It's I don't know if you've ever seen these. These are like AR is what they call it, augmented reality. It's a thing where you have both a physical set, at a school, in this case high schools, and like virtual stuff going on as well. What they're doing is showing these kids what a National Guard experience is like when you're covering a disaster zone. They call it Disasterville is this program, and it's showing kids how the National Guard goes into these areas, what their priorities are when they're looking at these natural disasters. It's a really kind of interesting way of showing kids, putting them in the boots of guardsmen as they cover these disasters.
How cool is that? Yet again, one of the many stories we are following for you coming up at 4 p.m. Right here on Fox 5. If you haven't already done so, make sure you can find all of the information on our website, I should say, at fox5dc.com. Vernon Miles, always good to see you, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we'll take a quick break yet again, awaiting the president to approach the podium. His reaction surrounding all things with the U.S. Supreme Court saying, no, tariffs are now illegal. Marley Hornick joins us next, right here on the Live Zone. All right, folks, back here on the Fox 5 Live Zone. It is now 5 minutes past the top of the hour. Yes, 5 minutes past 1 o'clock. Yet again, we are awaiting President Trump to address the nation. This following the U.S. Supreme Court striking down the president's far-reaching global tariffs earlier today, handing him a significant loss on an issue crucial to his economic goals. We're joined yet again by Marley Hornick. She is the CEO of Real America Vote. Marley, I got to tell you, it's been quite the busy past 45 minutes since you were last here. We know that the president not too happy with regard to what the Supreme Court did and had to say, and we expect to hear more from him in a minute. We also know that Nancy Pelosi now speaking up as well and saying that, well, it happened to be disastrous, that being the tariffs. Your response?
We have to keep a couple things in mind here. First of all, we also see Gavin Newsom running for president already from his pulpit in California, coming out and saying, oh, now Trump has to pay this back with interest.
Oh, wow.
Gleefully playing king of the mountain right now. But we have to remember the Supreme Court didn't rule tariffs illegal. The Supreme Court said that the particular statute Trump relied on in this case was unsuccessful. And yes, we've already seen Secretary Bessent and his assistant Jamieson Greer saying we have other opportunities, other possibilities under the law to follow through on some of these tariff policies where they know they can be anchored. They said it's not as dramatic, but it can still facilitate the president's agenda. And then we have to remember that tariffs are only one part of economic foreign policy. For example, recently, I think on February 10th, the Treasury Department just issued new sanctions against an organization in Iran, a company in Iran that was operating to avoid sanctions by going through Turkey with a bunch of several $1 million of fertilizer. Right, so Turkey was facilitating the transfer. Iran's, sanctions are being evaded. So new sanctions are being applied to cover up this gap that was exposed. And this all goes back to the issue of oil policy, which is a huge question. And the Trump administration, I mean, let's face it, a year ago when Trump took office, Maduro was not in prison. Right? We were not positioned to take over Greenland and control those northern shipping routes where Russia and China are currently exchanging oil, basically free of concern. And as so many things have changed in the last year. So I totally disagree with Pelosi that this is a disaster. I think they're just using the messaging opportunity to try to humiliate the president. But rest assured, American foreign policy and economic policy is secure.
I am not going to be surprised if the president comes out with, let's say, guns blazing, as they have said in the past. We now know he is some 22 minutes behind schedule with regard to the scheduled time he stated he would address the American people. Yet again, I would assume he's in the Oval Office still speaking with advisors as to perhaps how to approach and or address the nation. What do you think is being discussed right now?
Boy, this is such a good question because they constantly try to set him back on his heels.
Sure.
And so they put him in this position to always be reacting. And again, I want to go back to what I said before. Secretary Rubio's speech, basically playing off what Vice President Vance said a year earlier in Munich, expresses our intent as a country to stop facilitating globalization and start facilitating national sovereignty and trade relationships and foreign relationships based on that. Right? So he has so many wins to talk about. Okay, take NATO, for example. Now, a lot of people think, hey, the European countries are doing so great under socialism. Well, let's take a look at that deeply. How are they doing so great under socialism? They have great, government-sponsored health care. But do they pay for their own foreign security? No, they have not paid for their own military in decades. We have paid for that. So how well is socialism working if the countries can't even defend themselves? You have the same thing with Mexico, right? $65 billion a year is getting transferred from people who are earning a wage in the United States back into the hinterlands of Mexico. Now, I'm not saying I don't want people in Mexico to have money,
Sure.
But this absolves the Mexican government of having a welfare program. Again, this is at the expense of American job seekers. So, we have to think about so many of these pieces where there's just like this bleed out of the United States that is affecting American consumers, American workers in ways that they've almost become normalized to us.
Marley, it's no secret if you look at the number of legal cases brought forth against President Trump since he's returned to office. Well, many have actually sided in his favor. He actually turned out to be, as some would say, A-OK. Not the case this time. And would you say this is somewhat of a surprise that the Supreme Court ruled in this manner?
No, not at all. I think that even the markets were showing like a 25% chance of the president actually winning this one outright. Again, think about the circumstance, right? So a year ago, he starts these policies on an emergency basis. We have traveled a year's time, and many, many aspects of foreign policy, economic policy have shifted based on these tariffs. He has used them to leverage countries into investing back in the United States. Those factories are being built. Those plants are already under construction. So again, like, what is going to be the outcome? Is the president going to have to pay these back? Well, I don't think the Supreme Court is ready to issue a determination about how to make an equitable resolution. So let's hold off and see whether or not we're going to have to pay these back. That's the disaster. If that is ruled something that the president has to do, that's going to create real economic repercussions. Otherwise, I think we're in good territory. I really do.
Yet again, we are awaiting President Trump to approach the podium to address the American people. You see it right there on your screen. The Supreme Court earlier ruling 6-3 against the president's emergency tariffs. Trump actually probably not all smiles about this. I mean, we all know that. But what this does do, perhaps, is take the spotlight off of Mr. Jeffrey Epstein, the late Epstein at that. This is yet again something that you would have to look at for President Trump that perhaps is something positive in his favor, is it not?
I thought that the Epstein revolution, like all of the revelations coming out, were actually really hurting a lot of his adversaries. In fact, I think one of the things that the Epstein files is creating is awareness broadly about things that Trump talked about in 2016. Remember, he said, this system is rigged. He said, you know it, I know it, everybody knows it. The system is rigged by an elite group of people who are controlling policy decisions. They're controlling economic decisions at the expense of the American people. And we're getting the short end of the stick. And look at what's coming out. We're actually discovering that people throughout the political spectrum, from the far left to the far right, are implicated in perhaps exactly that, trading favors, currying for more economic or more political power through Epstein's networks. We see Prince Andrew was turning over classified information to Epstein within hours of receiving it himself. This is a disaster for those who wish to stay unaccountable and unanswerable to the legal agreements we have and also to moral agreements that are embedded in those laws.
Speaking to that, we know that former President Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton are now set to testify to the House Oversight Committee next week. What is it that you expect to hear from them, and what is it that you think they will say?
Well, they're going to try to position. I actually heard former Secretary Clinton speaking about, oh, well, Bill didn't really know this, and he was on that plane to discuss our philanthropic efforts. This is just her positioning. Whether or not that's true, I don't think we can say quite yet. And I'm not one of those people who's going to come out and point fingers when we don't have the full story.
All right. Well, we also know that during his speech at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth touted the Trump administration. Yesterday at the Gaylord Resort in Nashville, Hegseth highlighted his efforts to bring Christianity into the Pentagon. Yet again, so many folks cheering for the president, saying he did the right thing. What say you?
Well, I don't think the founders would agree that Christianity per se should be privileged above any other religion inside the Pentagon, because I think the founders were very committed to absolute equality of religious freedom. I do understand, based on, for example, Secretary Rubio in Munich last week was talking in another press conference, he was talking about the problem we have with the Islamists and basically saying, we're not really negotiating with Iran on a political basis because they have a religious ideology that drives all of their decision making that makes it impossible to have a straight political conversation. So I understand the urge towards, hey, Christianity is better than this extremist ideology. However, we have this thing called the First Amendment. So, if Christianity is something we're going to tolerate within the military, which I think had become intolerable, and I agree with Hegseth on that basis, that there was actually religious persecution of Christians was escalating inside of the military. And we see the anti-Semitism escalating on American campuses. If what we're going for is equality of access, equality of worship, equality of, support for your religious faith, I 100% support the secretary.
So we're discussing tariffs, we're discussing Pentagon, and never in a million years, Marley, did I think I would bring up aliens. And so yesterday we saw the president actually hop on Truth Social and state in so many words that, well, he ordered the feds, if you will, to release all information surrounding extraterrestrials. I'm curious, your response to that?
Well, I think it was funny because he went out and said, "Oh, Barack Obama has revealed classified information, but now he's forced to expose it." I don't know. If you don't mind, can we discuss the Roblox issue for a minute?
But of course.
Because the aliens is like way out there, but as a parent, as a mother, one of the things that's really bothering me about this Roblox case, and the defense attorneys for Roblox are saying, hey, we just created this platform. We have all these parental controls inside the platform. What is preventing a parent from going in and programming it to the advantage of their beliefs and their priorities, cutting off a certain amount of time and all these things. And I'm thinking, who are these people? Like, do you know that your kids, most American kids at this point have Roblox, they have Facebook, they have YouTube, they have all of these platforms. So now the social media companies want parents to spend, 10 hours a week going in, reprogramming each one of their kids' devices, and then praying that the kids don't figure out how to go in and redact all of those options. I mean, this is just inane. It's inane. It's like the whole thing that they say with toxic exposures, right? They say, well, this toxin is only at this tiny little threshold, so we're within, human tolerance for this toxin. But they neglect to point out that there's 2,000 toxins we're exposed to.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating to hear them mount that defense. And I really hope the court doesn't take it seriously. It is impossible for parents to control their children's access to these platforms. And what is very ironic about that?
And what's that?
Remember when the founder of Apple released iPhones, but he did not give them to his own kids? And he didn't think ahead very far, right? How was he going to keep his grandkids from using that technology if he wasn't going to pick them up and put them on some island he owns and bring them friends there who don't have phones either? It's just not,
I think many would argue that it ended up working out for him, his kids, his grandkids, and their kids later on with regard to perhaps what they could be exposed to from a financial perspective.
Right. That's certainly true.
We'll have to leave it there. Yet again, we are awaiting President Trump any minute now. Now, 40 minutes behind schedule, or 33 to be exact, with regard to approaching the podium to discuss all things surrounding the Supreme Court ruling that tariffs, or as you stated, the messaging behind it, and or what is it exactly that you said again, Marley? Not tariffs are illegal, but
right. The particular law that the president tried to anchor his tariff policy to couldn't be used that way.
Yeah. And so we are awaiting the president to respond just to that right here on the live zone. When that happens, we'll take you there. Marley, I know you have to run, and so we truly appreciate you discussing all things tariffs, Pentagon, and ET phoning home.
It's always a pleasure to talk with you guys.
You bet. We'll be right back.
ashamed of certain members of the court, absolutely ashamed for not having the courage to do what's right for our country. I'd like to thank and congratulate Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for their strength and wisdom and love of our country, which is right now very proud of those justices. When you read the dissenting opinions, there's no way that anyone can argue against them. There's no way. Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long, that I can assure you. The Democrats on the court are thrilled, but they will automatically vote no. They're an automatic no, just like in Congress. They're an automatic no. They're against anything that makes America strong, healthy, and great again. They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're an automatic no, no matter how good a case you have. It's a no. But you can't knock their loyalty. It's one thing you can do with some of our people. Others think they're being politically correct, which has happened before far too often with certain members of this court, and it's happened so often with this court. What a shame. Having to do with voting in particular, when in fact they're just being fools and lapdogs for the rhinos and the radical left Democrats, and not that this should have anything at all to do with it. They're very unpatriotic and disloyal to our Constitution. It's my opinion that the court has been swayed by foreign interests and a political movement that is far smaller than people would ever think. It's a small movement. I won by millions of votes. We won in a landslide. With all the cheating that went on, there was a lot of it, but we still won in a landslide. Too big to rig. But these people are obnoxious, ignorant, and loud. They're very loud, and I think certain justices are afraid of that. They don't want to do the right thing. They're afraid of it. This was an important case to me, more as a symbol of economic national security, and also, I would say, just for our country itself, so important, because we're doing so well as a country. We've never done so well. The good news is that there are methods, practices, statutes, and authorities, as recognized by the entire court in this terrible decision, and also as recognized by Congress, which they refer to, that are even stronger than the IEEPA tariffs available to me as President of the United States. And in actuality, I was very modest in my ask of other countries and businesses because I wanted to do, and it's very important, I wanted to be very well behaved because I wanted to do anything, I didn't want to do anything that would affect the decision of the court, because I understand the court. I understand how they are very easily swayed. I want to be a good boy. I have very effectively utilized tariffs over the past year to make America great again. Our stock market has just recently broken 50,000 on the Dow, and simultaneously, and even more amazingly, broken 7,000 on the S&P, two numbers that everybody thought upon our landslide election victory could not be attained. Think of that. Nobody thought it was possible to do it within 4 years, and we did it in 1 year. They said, you'll never be able, you'll go back and you read the geniuses, read their statements, all of the Nobel Prize winners in economics. They said, no, you couldn't do it in 4 years. Well, we didn't do it in 4 years. We did it in 1 year. We broke every record in the book, and we're continuing to do so. Tariffs have likewise been used to end 5 of the 8 wars that I settled. I settled 8 wars, whether you like it or not, including India, Pakistan, big ones, nuclear, could have been nuclear. Prime Minister of Pakistan said yesterday at the great meeting that we had, the Peace Board, he said yesterday that President Trump could have saved 35 million lives by getting us to stop fighting. They were getting ready to do some bad things. But they've given us great national security, these tariffs have. And together with our strong borders, reduced fentanyl coming into our country by 30%. When I use them as a penalty against countries illegally sending this poison into our country to poison our youth. All of those tariffs remain. They all remain. I don't know if you know that or not. They all remain. We're still getting them, and we will after the decision. I guess there's nobody left to appeal to. But again, those three people, such respect. I've had a lot of respect for them anyway, but such great respect. But other alternatives will now be used to replace the ones that the court incorrectly rejected. We have alternatives, great alternatives. Could be more money. We'll take in more money, and we'll be a lot stronger for it. We're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. We'll continue to do so. To show you how ridiculous the opinion is, however, the court said that I'm not allowed to charge even $1. I can't charge $1. Can't charge $1. I would have used 1 penny, but we don't make the pennies anymore. We save money. Can't charge $1 to any country under IEPA. Not $1. I assume to protect other countries. This must have been done to protect those other countries, certainly not the United States of America, which they should be interested in protecting. That's what they're supposed to be protecting. But I am allowed to cut off any and all trade or business with that same country. In other words, I can destroy the trade. I can destroy the country. I'm even allowed to impose a foreign country destroying embargo. I can embargo. I can do anything I want, but I can't charge $1. Because that's not what it says. And that's not the way it even reads. I can do anything I want to do to them, but I can't charge any money. So I'm allowed to destroy the country, but I can't charge them a little fee. I could give them a little 2-cent fee, but I cannot charge under any circumstances. I cannot charge them anything. Think of that. How ridiculous is that? I'm allowed to embargo them. I'm allowed to tell them you can't do business in the United States anymore. We want you out of here. But if I want to charge them $10, I can't do that. It's incorrect. Their decision's incorrect. But it doesn't matter because we have very powerful alternatives that have been approved by this decision. You know, they've been approved by the decision for those that thought they had us. And they're saying that I have the absolute right to license, but not the right to charge a license fee. So think of that. I have the right to license, which is a very powerful word. In many ways, license is more powerful than tariffs. In fact, I was thinking about using it. But they came up with the idea that I can license, just like the people that were opposing me told them to do, but not the right to charge a license fee. Think of that. Who ever heard of such a thing? What license has ever been issued without the right to charge a fee? You get a license, you charge a fee. It's automatic, but not with this court. But now the court has given me the unquestioned right to ban all sorts of things from coming into our country, to destroy foreign countries, but a much more powerful right than many people ever thought we even had, but not the right to charge a fee. How crazy is that? Our country is the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. And it was a dead country 1.5 years ago under an incompetent president. But now I'm going to go in a different direction, probably the direction that I should have gone the first time, but I read the language. I'm very good at reading language, and it read our way 100%, but now I'll go the way I could have gone originally, which is even stronger than our original choice. As Justice Kavanaugh, whose stock has gone so up, you have to see, I'm so proud of him, wrote in his dissent, although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. So, think of that. The decision might not substantially constrain. And it doesn't, he's right. In fact, I can charge much more than I was charging. So I'm going to just start. Although I firmly disagree with the court's holding today, the decision might not substantially constrain a president's ability to order tariffs going forward. That's because numerous other federal statutes, which is so true, authorize the president to impose tariffs and might justify most, if not all, of the tariffs issued in this case. Even more tariffs, actually. Those statutes include, think of that, those statutes include, for example, the Trade Expansion Act of 1962, Section 232. All of these things I know so well. The Trade Act of 1974, Sections 122, 201, 301, and the Tariff Act of 1930, Section 338, all clear, but it's a little bit longer process. I thought I'd make things simple, but they didn't let us do that. I would like to thank Justice Kavanaugh for frankly, his genius and his great ability. Very proud of that appointment. In actuality, while I am sure that they did not mean to do so, the Supreme Court's decision today made a president's ability to both regulate trade and impose tariffs more powerful and more crystal clear rather than less. I don't think they meant that. I'm sure they didn't. It's terrible. And to think that the Democrats who oppose this only because they want to go the opposite way, they'd like to pack the court. They want to put on 21 people. They want to pack the court, pack the Supreme Court. Maybe they should do it. Maybe they would be better off if they did it. They want to pack the court. They want to do anything to hurt our country. There will no longer be any doubt, and the income coming in and the protection of our companies and country will actually increase because of this decision. I don't think the court meant that, but it's the way it is. Based on long-standing law and hundreds of victories, and even, as I was pointed out before, even thousands of victories over the years, to the contrary, the Supreme Court did not overrule tariffs. They merely overruled a particular use of IEEPA tariffs. And essentially, it's used to get a fee. I can do anything I want with IEEPA, anything. I just can't charge anybody for it. I can license, I just can't charge them. It's ridiculous, but it's okay because we have other ways, numerous other ways. The ability to block, embargo, restrict, license, or impose any other condition on a foreign country's ability to conduct trade with the United States under IEEPA has been fully confirmed by this decision. So now there's no doubt, because, you know, there were a lot of questions about tariffs because no president was smart enough to use them to protect our country from those countries and businesses that were ripping us off. You took a look at the deficits that we had with some of these countries. It was disgraceful what they got away with for many, many decades. But now we know, because this decision affirms all those things that some people weren't sure about. In order to protect, and it says so, in order to protect our country, a president can actually charge more tariffs than I was charging in the past period of a year under the various tariff authorities. So we can use other of the statutes, other of the tariff authorities, which have also been confirmed and are fully allowed. Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I say quite simply, which I've said for a long time, make America great again. And interestingly, we've already made it great, so I don't have to use that, but I don't think we'll ever give up on MAGA. MAGA is always going to be with us. If you have a few questions, you can let us know. But just to end, so we're going forward. We will be able to take in more money, and there'll no longer be doubt, because there was always doubt. I know the people that brought the lawsuit, and they're sleazebags, major sleazebags, but I know them, and they're foreign country centric. They were sending things into our country, and the people representing them knew full well, but they were sending things into our country, and they were beneficial to other countries, but very, very bad for us. And I stopped it, and we'll just keep it going. So we have a totally firm decision now, and I don't think the court meant it, because the court doesn't show great spirit toward our country, in my opinion. A lot of bad decisions, but there are usually ways around it. This is something we could have done, as Justice Kavanaugh said, we could have done this originally, but we're doing it now. And the numbers could be far greater than the hundreds of billions we've already taken in. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, I'm very curious. You've spoken about
in the red.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Justice Thomas and Alito, as you know, are the most conservative constitutional justices. Do you think that you'll get to appoint 2 more justices later this term with similar ideologies? And what type of vetting process will they go through to ensure they uphold
I don't know, but they're great
Constitution?
justices. That's all I can say. And I hope they're going to be around a long time. I hope they're going to stay healthy. They're great people. They're great. And Justice Alito, too, to add to the group. These are great men.
Right.
They're with a great love of our country and a great understanding of the law.
Mr. President, are you going to ask Congress to take additional action on tariffs now?
No, I don't need to. It's already been approved. I mean, I would ask Congress and probably get it. When people look at the real numbers, and you look at hundreds of billions of dollars that have come into our country. Yesterday, I was at a steel plant, as you know, and I went to great place, great plant, great, wonderful people. And they were telling me, I said to them, you were there, a lot of the press in this room. Of course, I don't think this plane's big enough to take the press in this room, but a lot of the press right here. We were in Georgia. And I said to the owner, I made a speech at a factory. They make steel products. And I said, how are you? Nice to meet you. How's business? President, I'd love to kiss you. This is a very powerful man. I don't want to be kissed by that man, but a very powerful, strong man. He's been in the steel business for many years. His father started it. And he said, sir, I want to kiss you. I said, why? He said, because we were down to working 1 hour a week, and then you came in and imposed tariffs, and all of that foreign junk that they were dropping into our country stopped. And we're now going to double shifts, 7 days a week, and we may be very soon going to 24 hours around the clock, almost 7 days a week. He said, sir, I want to kiss you so badly. And I said, no, thank you. But you know what? He just to finalize it, he said, oh, this is a great place in Georgia. He said, all up and down the highway. Same exact answer, sir. We're all going out of business. We're going to go bankrupt. We're all going out of business. And now every one of us are thriving, and we're hiring people like we haven't. He said, like I've never, and he's been in business for, I think, 45 years, like we've never hired before. That's because of tariffs. And we're going to keep it going the same way. And you're going to start to see the results in a year from now when all those factories start that are under construction right now. You see all the construction numbers are so good. Those construction workers are building factories that are going to be open, including not only AI, which is big, but car plants coming in from Canada, who ripped us off for 30% of our market. Mexico ripped us off for a big portion. Over the years, they've taken our market. They've taken our cars. They manufacture them in Japan, Germany, and all over the place. Taken our cars. They manufacture them in Japan, Germany, and all over the place. Taken our cars. They manufacture them in Japan, Germany, and all over the place. Taken our cars. They manufacture them in Japan, Germany, and
All right, yet again, it appears we're having some technical difficulties with regard to the president's speech addressing all things surrounding tariffs. Some of the things that the president made mention of, he stated that it happens to be a disgrace with regard to how the Supreme Court ruled. The president also said that the court was swayed by foreign interests. He stated that this happened to be a very, and I will repeat, very important case to him, and he used tariffs, as he put it, to make America great again. Ultimately, the president said, despite what the Supreme Court ruled, that we have alternatives. And as of today, he plans to sign a 10% global tariff to what he says protect our country. I think we have the feedback up. And if we do, let's go ahead and take the president yet again addressing all things surrounding the Supreme Court's ruling.
Like that great patriot said yesterday, sir, what you've done, nobody thought was possible. And Steve Moore, a highly respected economist, came into my office yesterday. He said, you've done something nobody's ever done. 22 Nobel Prize winners in economics said we would right now be in a recession. And you said, no, we're going to have a booming country. We're going to have a booming country. You were right. All 22 were wrong, and you were right. This country is booming, and it's booming because of the election on November 5th. And it's booming for another reason. It's booming because of tariffs. Yeah, please, go ahead.
You said ahead of this decision that if the Supreme Court
please,
ruled...
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. What will you say to foreign nations who seek to renegotiate their deals? And what did you mean a moment ago when you said that the Supreme Court has been swayed by foreign interests?
Well, I think that foreign interests are represented by people that I believe have undue influence. They have a lot of influence over the Supreme Court, whether it's through fear or respect or friendships, I don't know. But I know some of the people that were involved on the other side, and I don't like them. I think they're real slime balls. And got to do what's right for the country. You got to do what's right for the Constitution. Not only dissented, their dissent is so strong. When you read their dissent, you know, a lot of times you'll read a dissent and it's like, well, you don't know, it could go either way. There's no other way. The good news is, it's like Justice Kavanaugh said, very strongly said, you have other ways you can go. You don't have to go that way. You can go other way. There are numerous other ways you can go. And frankly, this should have been done by presidents many years ago. They allowed our country to be eaten alive. We lost 50% of our car business. We used to make cars. We made all the cars. And then Mexico came, Canada came, Japan and Germany. But they're all coming back now. They're all coming back at record levels. No, you please. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking. I don't talk to CNN. It's fake news. Go ahead.
Mr. President, yesterday you made the case that the economy is the hottest it's been in a long time.
Right.
January jobs report beat expectations. CPI report beat expectation. Real wages are up. What would you tell Americans who are worried that this decision will kind of throw the economy that you have projected going in the right direction at a very rapid pace off track?
Well, thank you for the question. And I will say this, we really are at a very important point. I've been waiting for this decision so long. They could have made this decision a long time ago. Not complex. They're wrong on it. It's a ridiculous decision. But they should have released this a long time ago. We waited months. And that gave uncertainty. Now we have certainty. And I think you're going to see the country get much stronger because of it. Look, we were ripped off by almost every country in the world. If you look at the surpluses, almost every country in the world that did business with us, our people were stupid. And I blame presidents for it because they're ultimately the leader. We were being ripped off by almost every single country in the world, had some massive surpluses. China had hundreds of billions of dollars in surpluses with the United States. They rebuilt China. They rebuilt the army. We built China's army by allowing that to happen. I have a great relationship with President Xi, but he respects our country now. Now, what we've done, I charged China a 20% tariff as a penalty for sending fentanyl in. And that was 20 times more than they could make by selling fentanyl. And I said, you know, at some point you're going to say, like, and they have reduced it. You know, fentanyl is down by more than 30% coming into our country. Part of that is our strong border. We have a strong border now. But thank you. Thank you for your question.
Mr. President, sir, you warned once in a social media post that if the Supreme Court did this, shot down your tariffs, the U.S. would be, quote, financially defenseless. Are we financially defenseless right now?
No, because we're doing something in a different way. We're doing something in a very powerful way, and we're using things that some people thought we should have used in the first place. But it's more complicated. It's a little more complicated. The process takes a little more time, but the end result is going to get us more money, and I think it's going to be great. Yeah, Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, President Trump. So, since Liberation Day, there's about $175 billion in tariff revenue that is now in limbo. Do you have to refund $175 billion?
Think of it, Peter. Very fair question. They take months and months to write an opinion, and they don't even discuss that point. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars, not millions, hundreds of billions of dollars. And so I said, well, what happens to all the money that we took in? It wasn't discussed. Wouldn't you think they would have put one sentence in there saying that keep the money or don't keep the money, right? I guess it has to get litigated for the next 2 years. So they write this terrible, defective decision, totally defective. It's almost like not written by smart people. And what they do, they don't even talk about that. Your question is very basic. That was the first question I asked also to make you feel good. They say, what about all the money that we've taken in? Sir, they don't discuss that. How crazy is that?
What you're saying is, are you saying that you don't plan to honor refunds for companies that file for them?
I just told you the answer, right? I told you the answer. It's not discussed. We'll end up being in court for the next 5 years. Go ahead, Green.
Thank you, Mr. President. When you are talking about the relationship with countries that you have sought trade deals with, do you anticipate that they will seek to renegotiate those? What do you say to them? And do you view this as a potential undermining power for your
negotiations? We're going straight ahead with 10% straight across the board, which was the absolute right to do. And that's taking place. That's a lot of money coming into our country. And then during that period of about 5 months, we are doing the various investigations necessary to put fair tariffs or tariffs, period, on other countries. So we're doing that period, but we're immediately instituting the 10% provision, which we're allowed to do. And in the end, I think we'll take in more money than we've taken in before.
Mr. President, you've used the tariff revenue to pay for a host of federal policies. You claim that they will pay for them. What happens to
like the farmers. We took care of farmers. You know, the farmers were mistreated by foreign countries very badly, very, very badly. And last week I gave them $12 billion out of tariff money. We intend to, out of tariff money, because just so you understand, we have tariffs. We just have them in a different way. And now they've been confirmed by the Supreme Court of the United States. So there's no longer that question out there about tariffs. And we'll be taking in hundreds of billions of dollars. And countries that have treated us badly will have to pay a price for treating us badly. And countries that have been good to us will be treated very well. We just left the top person in a place called Vietnam, just left my office. Great gentleman, strong and smart. He said, you know, I think this means you're allowed to charge us more tariffs than before. And Canada said to Jameson, I might want to say it, Jameson, but Canada said, I hope you win this decision, because if you don't win, you'll actually be allowed to charge us, with a little additional work, higher tariffs. Jameson, you want to comment on that?
Yes, sir. So to the President's point, we have a lot of tools out there. We have Section 122, which will be implemented today. It will be signed today and implemented very shortly. We have Section 301 investigations, which are incredibly legally durable, where we can investigate and address unfair trading practices that have led to our huge trade deficit. And so you can look forward in the coming days and weeks to seeing all of that come out, and we're going to keep continuity in the program. We're going to keep addressing this so that the deficit can keep going down. That's the trend it has, and we can make America great again.
No.
Several of Republicans in Congress have supported this decision by the Supreme Court, and Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, has called you a wannabe king. Why wouldn't
him a low IQ?
But why wouldn't
he doesn't even know And I watched him the other day interview. The guy doesn't even know what a tariff is.
But there's been bipartisan criticism
No, not
of the
bipartisan.
tariffs.
Excuse me.
There's several
A few
Republicans
people.
have said that.
Yeah,
But
a
why
few people.
wouldn't you just work with Congress to come up with a plan?
I don't have to.
To push tariffs
I have the
through?
right to do tariffs, and I've always had the right to do tariffs. And it's all been approved by Congress, so there's no reason to do it. All we're doing is we're going through a little bit more complicated process. Not complicated very much, but a little more complicated than what we had. We'll be able to take in tariffs, more tariffs. And the Congress people and the Congress.
Down the Canadian tariffs last week.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
been votes
you
in
know
the
why?
Senate against it.
Yeah, because we lost 2 Republicans or 3 Republicans because they're not good Republicans. What you don't say, you don't say that we got 215 votes.
You need 218 for something to pass.
Yeah, sure we do. We might have lost 3 votes, and what was the score on the Republican side? 215 to 3, right? But you don't say that. We have great unity. There's great unity in the Republican Party, and I hope everyone's going to vote Republican, because otherwise you won't have a country left, because these people have been they are destroying our country. Please.
Mr. President, the 122 tariffs, that 10%,
Yeah.
is that going to be for 150 days, or do you want to charge that indefinitely?
We have a right to do pretty much what we want to do, but we're going to charge it starting effectively, I think it's 3 days from now. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, you speak to a lot of factory workers, a lot of manufacturing workers. What does the Supreme Court ruling say? What's that message to those factory workers?
Well, I think the factory workers are happy because we're now telling them that they're going to look. The man I met with yesterday who owned a factory was out of business. He was out of business. And now he's employing 5 times. In fact, I walked in, he's got a brand new crane. I said, how old is that crane? We got it in December. He's allowed to write it off in 1 minute. The Great Big Beautiful Act gave no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. He said this great big beautiful bill, frankly, has been the best thing that's ever happened for the workers much more so than for rich people. The only thing it does for rich people, it allows them to hire a lot more people. But when I saw him, and then he said, it's all up and down the line. This is a place in Georgia, all up and down, other factories doing different, not only steel products, different. He said, every one of us was out of business. We could barely make it. Some of them were down to less than an hour a week. Think of it, 1 hour a week to make just a few little trinkets or whatever they make. Now they're going round the clock. I had it a month ago. I went to Michigan, went to Ford, and I met with Bill Ford, the head of Ford, and we were in one of the biggest plants, an original plant from the early 1900s, where, by the way, I might add this, it's not really relevant, but it's all relevant. Murders are down the lowest since 1900, around the time that he had this plant. That's 125 years. We have the lowest murder rate. Okay. And our crime is way down in the country. The factories that we're talking about, the people that we're talking about, they are so thrilled with Trump. So whether we charge IEEPA tariffs or whether we charge tariffs under a different section, that's what we're going to be doing. There's no way we can this is what happened to our country. This is why we owe $38 trillion, which we'll get rid of in pretty good course. We have a very incompetent Fed chairman who likes high interest rates. For political reasons, he likes them. But we're going to have somebody very good. Interest rates should come down very substantially. I think we should pay the lowest interest rates on the planet. There should be no country, and we don't do that. We're number 38. This is just bad policy for a long period of time. But what's happened is we've made America strong again. We've made America great again. We should pay. As an example, the country of Switzerland, we were getting almost no tariffs from them. We had a $40 billion deficit. And the prime minister called me up. She said, but we are a small country, because I said we're going to raise it to 39% from nothing. That would have rendered them not very successful, as opposed to right now they're considered elite. But if we put a tariff, they would, and I realized then, she said, but sir, we are a small country. I said, you're a small country with a big deficit. For us, you're making a lot of money off the United States. If we do that, a lot of these elite countries, they're elite because we let them make so much money. And I want them to do well, but I don't want them to do well on the backs of the American taxpayer. So I appreciate your question. I think it's a reasonable answer.
President Trump, you said that you were disappointed with that, but were you surprised with this decision? What you felt when you?
I was surprised because I thought that what we did was, number one, according to, I mean, I read the paragraphs. I read very well. Great comprehension. I read everything there is to read, and I said, we can't lose this case. But we can when judges are political, when they want to be politically correct, when they're catering to a group of people in D.C. maybe. I don't know what it is, because when you read it, there's no other interpretation. There is no other interpretation. But it's okay, because what has come out, and I'll say it for the third time and maybe the last time in a while, is that we've taken the uncertainty of tariffs out, because we had uncertainty. We got sued by sleazebags, I know them well, that are very outside country, China-centric, but outside country-centric. And they're going to end up not doing as well as they did before. America was becoming really, really, we're strong again. Hey, we have the strongest military. I rebuilt the military in the first term. We have the most powerful military. We make the best equipment. And even them, you know, we could do much better. We have people that get paid a lot of money to manufacture Patriot missiles and javelins and all the different things. But when you want them, they're too slow. And we put them on notice, and they're going to make, our country is building a lot of things right now, and our country is doing really well. And we're going to keep it that way. The bottom line is that the word certainty is now in the equation. Every single thing I said today is guaranteed certainty. It's been tested, as Jameson said 1,000 times. Literally, I said hundreds of times. He said, sir, actually thousands of times, and won in all of the courts. And we're just going back to that. And the problem is that we had other presidents that weren't into trade. Maybe they weren't business oriented. Maybe they weren't smart. We had some dummies too, you know. I respectfully say we had some real dummies. So we are going to keep it going just as before, probably more so. But you're no longer going to be asked, every time I got up, you'd ask, well, what happens if you can't charge tariffs? Now we can. And by the way, in their decision, they specifically said, we can do these. We have alternatives, yeah.
There you have it. Yet again, President Trump, in so many words, outraged with regard to the U.S. Supreme Court's decision stating that tariffs are illegal. As the president put it, we have alternatives. You can continue to watch the president address any and all things tariffs by streaming it on our YouTube page, youtube.com/@Fox5DC. On behalf of producer Joey, I'm Guy Lambert. Thank you so much for watching. The Take coming up next, right here on Fox 5.